Hey everyone, this is Brooke, and you're listening to the Vintage Gardener Podcast, which is where I give you tips and tricks on gardening, particularly if you're like me and you're gardening in southern New Jersey, which is Zone 7A. So it has been a while since I have done a podcast, and I do apologize. I have been busy seeding things. I've got a lot more to seed. I've also been doing house projects. And I realized today that I needed to post something. So today I'm going to talk to you guys about frost cloth because it's this time of year when everything is starting to warm up. I don't know how it's in the rest of the country, but here in New Jersey, we've actually been getting pretty nice temperatures during the day. Sometimes, a lot of times in the 50s, in the 60s. We've even got some days where it's been in the low 70s. But then at night, the temperature drops. Now, sometimes the temperature is staying in the low 40s, according to the official, thermostat. And then sometimes it gets into the 30s. Now, guys, I would strongly recommend that you get a thermostat for your property, because one thing I've noticed is that, if I look at my Apple Watch and they're telling me the temperature for, Medford, which is where I live, I guess based upon some weather station, when I've had an outside thermostat, the thermostat will tell me something different. Usually it's lower. So if it's getting closer to 40 degrees, I don't know. It's just that my property, there seems to be a cold sink right here. So that's something I have to take into consideration, especially when I'm trying to harden off some of my plants or even just start things in my hoop house. So I do have a little hoop. I'm going to do a YouTube video on that, but I have been putting things in there like coleus, my dahlias. I think I've got a couple of nasturtium in there, and I'm starting some asters. But of course at night, especially on the evenings where it's getting really, really cool, I've had to use frost cloth. And so you might be thinking, well, is that the same thing as a frost blanket like that you see at Lowe's? And it is not. Now, the frost blankets at Lowe's, maybe if you have the temperature's supposed to get down to 33 degrees, that will probably be sufficient. But if your temperatures dip, that frost cloth is not going to do anything. So over the years, I've used bed sheets, I've used quilts. Quilts can be effective in helping protect your plants. They are heavy, so you definitely should put them on stake. I've used bed sheets. I've even used felted, the rolls of felted fabric that they have at Joann Fabric, which actually do work fairly well. A lot of times I was double layering them. But last year I actually bought proper frost cloth, and I got it from Dan Blaze. Now, the guy who's helping me, I don't think really knew what the frost cloth was or what it was. Well, he knew what it was, but I asked him a question because I noticed on the frost cloth it said 8 degrees Fahrenheit. And I asked him, what does the 8 degrees Fahrenheit mean? And he said, oh, that means that it'll protect your plants even if the outside temperature gets down to 8 degrees. And then I noticed on the pack that they were saying, basically also try 6 degrees. And I said, so when you're saying the one that says 6 degrees, he goes, yes, so that will protect it down to 6 degrees. So when I got it last year, we weren't getting any temperatures anywhere near that, but I did use it in my hoop house when we had some cold snaps, and my plants did fine. I mean, I put that on, and then I also put some a blanket on and that sort of thing, and all the plants survived. I had pre-sprouted dahlias, and they were fine. So it did work. But the guy who answered that question was not correct. That's not what the 8 degrees means. And so let me go over the common types of frost cloths you're going to see and what protection they actually give. So for this episode, I'm just primarily discussing Agribon because that is a well-known agricultural brand. But even if you get a different brand, it usually should give you a designation on the side, and this will explain what it means. So the first type of frost cloth is called Agribon. It's AG15. And so this is described as being super lightweight. It weighs 0.45 ounces per square yard. it allows 90% light transmission. Now, this gives very, very limited frost protection. It's primarily used for insect protection. So if you got an aphid issue, you can cover it. If you're planting seeds, like grass seeds, and you want to cover the area so the birds don't get it, that's what this is designed to do, because it doesn't block too much of the sunlight. When I looked at the website, it describes it as some frost protection, but it doesn't tell you how much it gives. It doesn't tell you how many degrees protection it gives you. So I would say it's probably minimal, maybe a degree or two, if that. And then the next one is called AG19, and that's considered to be lightweight. That is 0.55 ounces per square yard. Now, this provides 4 degrees of protection. So basically, if you cover it, as long as the temperature does not go below 28 degrees, that's why they say 4 degrees protection, because 4 degrees obviously takes you to the freezing point, which is 32 degrees. So it protects to 28 degrees Fahrenheit, and it allows 85% light transmission. And then there's AG30, and that's 0.9 ounces per square yard of weight, and it protects plants to between 26 to 28 degrees, because there's other things that go into effect, like the humidity, like the wind, because it does allow moisture to leave a little bit, and it does, obviously if the wind is blowing, the wind is going to permeate that, so that's why they give you a range. So basically it's 4 to 6 degrees protection. It allows 70% of the light transmission. That's considered to be midweight. Now, the heavyweight is AG50, and that's 1.5 ounces per square yard of weight, and it protects to 24 degrees Fahrenheit, so that's 8 degrees protection. It allows 50% light transmission. And then the heaviest duty that Agribon has is called AG70, and that is 2 ounces per square yard. Now, it said it provides up to 8 degrees Fahrenheit, but I have seen other places on the web who've said that AG70 actually provides more than 8. 8 is the minimum. It can protect like 10 degrees up to 12 degrees, I guess, depending upon the condition. But of course, it only allows 30% of the light to permeate. Now, based upon what I've just read to you, the one that I got was the 1.5 ounce per square yard. So that's why I have 8 degrees protection. Now, I have seen online via gardening blogs. I've also seen some YouTubers who talked about the fact that if you do layers of the frost cloth, it provides additional protection. And so, for example, this one website, this one gardening website, I can't remember what the name of it was, saying that basically if you had like the AG30, which is 4 to 6 degrees protection, and you put 2 layers on that, it would increase the protection to 12 degrees, but it would reduce the light transmission from 70% to 40%, something along those lines. So I've only used the 1 layer, plus I put like the felt on top of it, and my plants have done well. One of these days, I'm probably going to try to do 2 layers just to see what happens. I'm doing this inside of a hoop house, so the hoop house, although it doesn't maintain the temperature, it certainly keeps the wind, the wind and stuff out. So anyway, that is what the numbers on the frost cloth mean. So I bring that up because I know, especially this time of year, everybody wants to get a head start on planting. And so if you do start, if you got stuff in your house that's just so large that it really needs to get in the ground, you can put it in the ground, but here's a way to keep it alive if your temperatures start dipping. So try it out. Maybe double layer it. I know with the mid-weight, which is the AG30, the AG50, and the AG70, if you're going to use that, they do recommend that you have use hoops or something to keep the cloth off of the plants of themselves because it does weigh them down. And I discovered that this morning when I took it off my dahlias, because actually I think it's probably more the felt than anything, because that's a lot heavier, but it will weigh your plants down. It does allow moisture to penetrate it, but it does, one of the ways it works is that it does retain the heat and moisture from the ground. So if you're going to put it on there, if you leave it on for more than one day, make sure you take it off like after 2 days, just to let some of the moisture out so that you don't get any fungal issues, because that is a real problem. They don't, using things like sheets and whatnot, I guess it can, like I said, it can be used if you're getting like something light, like, if maybe the temperature is supposed to get down to 34 or 33, you may be okay using a sheet or something. I would not recommend that you use plastic. I have seen, for example, my local big box garden center, it will use plastic, and I don't know why, because with that plastic, when those, that water gets on the leaves, that freezes, it destroys the plant. To be quite honest, that's one of the reasons they don't recommend that you use cloth, because the sheets and whatnot will retain the moisture. They will be wet, and you've got those wet, freezing water on your plant leaves. Now, maybe if you put stakes around it and you're draping the sheet or the pillowcase over it, maybe that'll make a difference. I know in the past when I was using, some, I think it was a pillowcase to protect some roses, I had like a rose cage over the rose to give it support, and I put the, actual, the pillowcase over top of that, so that way it didn't touch the leaves. But you definitely don't want to have anything wet touching the leaves when it's going to freeze. So anyway, guys, I hope you found that very interesting. I hope you guys found it useful. In addition to protecting your plants from frost, you can use the frost cloth as an season extender, like in fall, to get more vegetables and that sort of thing. And you can even use it in the spring to get an early start on things like broccoli and that, and whatnot. So guys, that's it for today's episode. I will see you in the next one. If you guys are not following me on YouTube, you might want to jump over, because I'm going to be posting some more videos. I do have a backlog, and I'm going to try to get through those. And of course, now we're getting into the spring season, so I'm clearing up in the garden. Certain things, like for example, my poppies, I'll be putting out within the next couple of weeks, because they're getting big enough to transplant. And we're headed on into the 2022 summer season. So I'm really excited, and I hope you are. So thank you guys so much for listening. My podcast can be found on Podbean as well as iTunes, and I will see you guys, or I guess you guys will hear me in the next episode. Thank you for joining me.